The world is spinning fast, navigating the chaos, built to outlast. 2 generations shaping destiny's art, the legacy blueprint straight from the heart. The Fan Boss Frequency, we're tuning in. Chris and Skylar show you how to win. The Fan Boss Frequency. The Fan Boss Frequency.
What's up, and welcome back to the Fan Boss Frequency. I hope you enjoyed that intro, and it kind of leads me to what our episode's about today. So I have a confession to make. I'm a product of the 80s. I'm proud to be born in 1981. My childhood was absolutely friggin' amazing compared to what some of these kids have dealt with now. I mean, let's just look around. I mean, we didn't need a status update to know we were having a good time. We just need a full air in our tires and a fresh pack of AA batteries for our Game Boys, and all was right with the world. So our needs were simple back then. So, as the manifesto of an 80s kid, every generation thinks they had it the best. But if you grew up in the 80s, you didn't just have it good. You had the golden ticket. We were the last generation to know what it felt like to truly be off the grid while simultaneously watching the digital world being born. We didn't have GPS to find our friends. We looked for the pile of bicycles in front yards. Our social media was a busy signal on a corded wall phone. We were raised on a diet of garden hose water, Saturday morning cartoons, and absolute freedom to stay out until the streetlights came on. If those lights flickered, you better be hitting the driveway or you were answering to the boss of the house. See, my big mama didn't play about that. So she knew when you were inside, you need to be inside at a specific time. Wasn't necessarily street lights, but, home in time for dinner was always the way to go. So let's go ahead and talk about the cool stuff we had growing up. So our toys were weapons of imagination. So let's talk about the gear. Today's toys are all screens, software, little technology here and there. But 80s toys were built for the trenches. I mean, we had G.I. Joe, the real American hero. We didn't just play with them. We conducted full-scale military operations in the dirt. We had, He-Man and Masters of the Universe, where a plastic sword and the power of Grayskull shout could change the world. And who could forget Transformers? Long before CGI movies, we were sitting on the floor trying to figure out how to turn a cassette tape into a robot without snapping a plastic hinge. I mean, these toys didn't do the work for us. They required imagination, a little bit of grit, and usually a trip to the store for more D-cell batteries. I can't tell you, if it was battery operated in my household, preserve your batteries. Don't leave them laying on the floor and leave them on because you weren't getting more. You had a budget in batteries. That was probably the coolest thing. But there was no rechargeables, that's for certain. If we could plug in our doggone, Walkman and get a fresh charge on it, wow, how different our lives would have been. But we didn't know about, and they never really gave any warning either. When they were done, they were done. It's just kind of like, sorry about your luck. So, and I'm convinced that's probably why they made the 9-volt batteries for smoke detectors and didn't put 9 volts into anything else. Although I did have a couple of remote control cars that had those 9-volt batteries. So, but, the technology in the 80s, it really felt like magic. I mean, I remember the first time I saw an Atari, my neighbor across the street had one, and I thought it was the coolest thing. We'd spend hours over there just playing with it, and the Pac-Man game was nuts. And I remember, we'd spend hours, getting rug burn on our knees, playing on the doggone, TV, the little 19-inch. Oh, man. I mean, can you imagine? You put a 19-inch in front of a kid today, they'd laugh at you. My other favorite was my neighbor next door. He had an NES, and he had Duck Hunt. I was like, man, a gun game with shooting ducks, it don't get no better than this. Like, it will never get better than this. Moving a couple pixels across a wood grain television, we really felt like we were kind of living in the future. And we were the generation of the Walkman. The first time music really became personal and really portable, you could carry it with you. You'd spend hours making a mixtape for somebody you liked, timing the radio perfectly so the DJ didn't talk over, the intro of the song. That took patience. And let me tell you, those DJs were good now. They could walk a song out better than I ever heard in my life. And I'm like, man, come on. They were taking all the way up to the first word and the first verse. Like, you wasn't getting nothing out of them. But, then of course you got the VCR. The sheer power of being able to record a show and watch it later. Oh my gosh, that was absolutely incredible. And, recording that show, setting up the timer and all that, man, there was absolutely an art to that, because we didn't have on demand. We had a rewind button and a prayer. That was about it. And the tape got ate up. It was game, set, match. It was over with. Sorry about your luck on this one, kiddos. You're out. So, we grew up against the backdrop of, massive historical shifts also. We watched the Challenger disaster in our classrooms. I actually went to a school in Orlando, Kissimmee, Poinciana more specifically, the Deerwood Challengers. And our school was the Challengers because of the space shuttle. So that was pretty cool. We saw the Berlin Wall come down, proving that, nothing's permanent. I had a lot of questions about that, but it was quite an amazing story. We lived through the greed is good era of business that paved the way for entrepreneurs today. The 80s taught us that you have to work for what you want. You have to fix what you break, and you have to be home when the lights come on. It was a decade of neon colors and hard-earned grit. So if you're a child of the 80s, take a second today to appreciate that foundation. We didn't just survive the 80s, we were forged by them. And I will take this to my grave. I think it is the greatest generation for kids. I absolutely mean that. And it's really interesting in our line of work to meet people that we work with that are my age, because we have the best of both worlds, analog and digital. And I mean that in everything. We had the best of everything when it came to, the technology side of the world. So, we really saw a little bit of everything. We've seen the evolution of the internet go from dial-up to always on to in our pockets. It's quite an amazing feat. But on this fun Friday, because it is Friday for me, I just want to have some fun with the fact that the 80s are the greatest generation, and we appreciate everybody who came before us that kind of paved the way for some of these things. But I'm telling you, the technology, the cartoons, I've gotten hooked on yacht rock lately. Probably about the last 2 months. It's on Channel 15 on Sirius XM. One of my favorite channels, and the production is just, for simple songs, is absolutely just amazing. And then I click over to today's music, and I'm like, man, they got somebody with a doggone, iPhone mixing this, doing that, and away we go. And it's, the orchestras from the 70s and 80s just to produce a simple song were just, that to me was always amazing. But we're seeing things change and evolve, and I think as much as some things change, some things stay the same. Be on the lookout. The analog era is on its way back. I've heard this for many years, probably about 4 years now. Gary Vee swears up and down we're going back to the days of handheld camcorders, and people are tired of their phones, and they're really just kind of fed up having everything just bombarded in their space all day, every day. So there was something to be said for the simplicity of going home and taking the phone off the hook and knowing nobody was going to bother you. And that's just how it was. And that really, to get away from the world, that's how easy it was. And people were like, the phone's busy. They're probably talking to somebody. There was really, no more complicated than that as far as most people in the 80s were concerned. So, it's definitely a different time, much simpler time. I'd give anything to go back. I want to find somebody's house who is stuck in the 80s. I'll buy it, just move in. I'll just bring my suitcase. All good to me, baby. So, if you're a child or a product of the 80s, congratulations. We made it. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to share with your kids and your friends. And have a good rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your family. And before I get out of here, make sure to visit your local podcast. Like, share, follow. Share us with a friend. Visit thefamboss.com. Check out our sponsors. And thank you so much for all your support. And we look forward to talking to you on the next round. Have a great one.